Excellencies, Ministers of Justice, and Minister of Interior of Africa and members of the Republic of Egypt, especially the Chairman of the Administrative Control Authority, His Excellency Mr. Sharif. Excellencies, heads and members of participating delegations, Excellencies, ambassadors of African states, and members of diplomatic corps, distinguished guests. First of all, I must thank and appreciate the Egyptian government to host these important meetings and forum. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have come together to participate in this important meeting, the first African Anti-Corruption Forum meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh, the Peace City. People in every corner of the world are campaigning in rejection of global scourge of corruption. As federal government of Somalia, we pledge to continue to work with our local, regional, and international partners to prevent and combat corruption in all its forms. Excellencies, fighting corruption is an integral part of the rule of law. The federal government of Somalia in general, and in particular the Ministry of Justice, has placed a high priority on the development of the draft bill for the establishment of an independent anti-corruption commission in line with Article 11C of our professional constitution. In close collaboration with a key federal institution, including Auditor General Office, Attorney General Office, and Ministry of Finance, we established a core group to lay out the foundation for combating corruption in Somalia. Excellencies, these past 5 years, remarkable progress has been made by the federal government of Somalia toward achieving its milestones in the inclusive politics and security and justice roadmap. A peaceful, stable, and democratic state can only be achieved in a transparent and corruption-free Africa and Somalia. The progress made on state building will be undermined unless and until successful strategies are derived and implemented to address corruption. Also, we need an effective, accountable judiciary in our continent. Excellencies, as we all are aware, the corruption is the single most important threat to stability, justice, development in Africa. It exacerbates economic disparities and undermine our reform effort, divert aid, discourage foreign direct investment, and limit the confidence and trust of our African nation in their leader and in their institutions. Its implication for national security cannot be ignored. Corruption plays into the hands of violent extremist groups, organized crime, legitimizing their agendas and threatening the peace-building gain made over the years and years. It is a systematic disease that urgently requires a systematic response. It is for these reasons that the federal government of Somalia has identified the fight against corruption as its top strategic priority. Excellencies, systematically measuring corruption is challenging everywhere. As a country recovering from a long civil war, Somalia is certainly no exception. However, the limited data that are available paint a grim picture. Out of all statistics relating to Somalia, the one that dogged us for so long is our last place performance on Transparency International Perception Index. Indeed, there is a perception that there is corruption in Somalia, but Somalia is not the most corrupt country in the world. It is high time that we reject and change such a dangerous narrative. The federal government of Somalia has done much over the last few years to not only change the perception, but to change the reality. Our government is the first government in Somalia to put corruption so high on its agenda. Indeed, the predominant theme at the annual ministerial cabinet retreat, which took last year, was the fight against corruption. For 8 months now, anti-corruption coordination unit has been operational in the Ministry of Justice, and it is in the final stages of developing Somalia's first national anti-corruption strategy, a comprehensive blueprint document that will guide the soon-to-be established Anti-Corruption Commission. I, as Minister of Justice, recently had the honor to represent Somalia at the 18th International Anti-Corruption Conference in Copenhagen. Ladies and gentlemen, the federal government of Somalia continues to strengthen its system and build public trust in its institution. Key reforms include the pay of all government employees through their bank account, the biometric registration of all civil servants, the biometric registration of all kinds of Somali forces, and the deposit of all taxes and government fees to the Central Bank of Somalia. As a result of this reform, we are gaining more trust from our international partners. The first direct budget support received from the European Union is a testament for this. In the legal framework to combat corruption, there have been important developments, including submission to the Parliament of the Company Law, the Public Finance Management Law, the Auditor General Law, most notably the draft law that will give birth to the Anti-Corruption Commission is now at the advanced stage in the legislative review process and soon will be finalized. We have also anti-money laundering and financial reporting center and also Public Procurement Act. The establishment of Anti-Corruption Commission will mark the end of impunity Somalia. In the federal government of Somalia, there is no hiding place for corruption. As the executive leadership of these African countries, we must not only encourage integrity and anti-corruption, we must practice and embody them. We must work in the public interest, not in the private interest. We must work for our African nation. I implore every officials in the government, every civil servant, every Somali who join us as we embark this new era of transparency and accountability in Somalia. Ladies and gentlemen, no country, region, or community is immune from corruption. It is not limited to one kind of economy or people. It is a global struggle that requires international cooperation and unified voice against corruption. It has been 15 years since the enactment of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC. We are willing and working join this convention in the near future. Exceeding UNCAC is part of our commitment to work towards corruption-free Somalia, one where the bounty of Somalia benefits all its people. Also, we are willing to ratify African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, such a meeting of the first African Anti-Corruption Forum meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh provide an opportunity for Somalia and its international partner to stand united against corruption and reaffirm our mutual determination to strengthen transparency and accountability throughout the public and private sector in our continent. Finally, I believe that the following are too important in order to fight corruption. First, it has been said, a political will. Second, legal framework. Third, compliance, strengthening law enforcement agencies. Fourth, most importantly, a strong, independent, accountable judiciary in our continent. I would like to use this opportunity to call on the African countries to continue to help push the government good governance and anti-corruption reform in their all respective countries. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.